Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Tradie Business School Podcast, the only podcast you'll need to grow your trades-based business and turn it into an asset rather than the liability it probably is with you running around like the headless chook doing all the things. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Brian Santos. I always love having him on the show. He is part of the team and helping our clients be less like headless chooks. Brian, welcome to the show today. How's things?
Yeah, very good. Good to be on here again and chat to all the you lovely people listening today.
Amazing. This episode is the first, it should go live in May, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month for those who don't know or aren't aware. And we felt it was important to talk about this and embrace that month. And you know, we had a bit of a chat offline about business and how we can support business owners in and around mental health. And interestingly, where I went was, you know, the real deep sort of mental work, dealing with depression, dealing with anxiety, all of that sort of thing. But what we ended up settling on talking about was your suggestion, Brian, is more of the everyday things and how we can improve our mental health on a daily basis. You know, obviously there's some, you know, if we're suffering with depression and anxiety. Now, I use the word suffering loosely because language is important. I always try and change that language to living with depression or anxiety because the suffering is optional. Now, I know that's going to trigger some people and we'll get into that in another podcast. But Brian, talk to me or talk to the listeners about, you know, what we, I guess, spoke offline about and that those sorts of everyday things that I guess they're the straws. And that's what we were essentially talking about is the straws that breaks the camel's back, right? It's the little things day in, day out. And I think this is going to be really powerful for everyone is just what are those tiny little things that you can take off of your plate or remove from your life that are, you know, not ideal and that are contributing to perhaps not great mental health?
I think there's so many ways to look at mental health. And like you said at the beginning, there's stuff that we can do internally to acknowledge, improve, and better our own mental health from, you know, physical changes through our diet, through exercise, to sleep and more water and not drinking and all that sort of jazz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is absolutely relevant and applicable. What I also see from in the trenches kind of thing on a daily basis is a lot of people's stress comes from the ins and outs and the workings of their business. And what I mean by that is when I say, okay, I'm stressed about my business today. Okay, what's happening? Oh, I have to deal with this freaking client and they're not paying me on time. Or I have to chase, money because, my supplier's chasing me, but my customers, or whatever my customers like a pain in the backside and, and so if you listen to those conversations, the common denominator is the customer in terms of the source of stress. Or in other words, the source of the mental health experience. I can't remember what word you used. Not suffering, but the mental health experience.
Yes.
And so if that's the case, let's be practical about it. And actually, if we're practical about it, we look at it logically and go, okay, well, if that's really the source, or if there's a couple of clients or customers or types of customers that seem to be the stressor, then what is it that we can do to is there a pattern? The often case is that we're dealing with clients who aren't our ideal clients in the first place. So often we're having cash flow issues, and then when you break it down, often it's because we're dealing with clients that we actually aren't really the ideal clients for us. They might be giving us constant work or being the major customer for us, but they're not paying us on time or landing, or the owner is an a-hole or whatever it is, right?
You swear, Brian, the owners are assholes. Like, let's be matter of fact, like we, on a daily basis, like you said, we have these conversations with people and they're dealing with shit clients, right? And I get where it comes from. It comes from this lack and scarcity mentality that we've got to be all the things to all the people. I had a conversation with a person yesterday and they specifically talked about the fact that they hadn't niched down. Now, I won't go into what industry they're in and what they do, but they have the ability to do lots of things and provide lots of products and services across the board. And this is what I see people do all the time, right? It's like, oh, I've got this amazing skill set and I've got these tools and abilities, whatever it may be, to do all these things, right? But it's the counterintuitive thing to do is to narrow that field down to the thing that you are really, really good at and the clients that really, really want that thing, right? Because what you're saying is, you get these clients that aren't necessarily the best fit. Like, can you service them? Can you do their thing? Like, I think I can coach everybody, but just there's an old saying that comes to mind, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right. And I think that this applies in this situation is that when you try and be all the things to all the people, you will drop balls. You won't be able to give them the service that they need, but equally they're going to turn into pain in the ass or asshole clients because they're not getting the service that they want either, And seeing this manifest in different ways, it ultimately ends up in stress and detracting from a good state of mental health, because when you're going into work and you're resenting going there and it's your business, like, it makes it really hard to scale and grow and just show up.
Totally. And, that saying, just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. If you take that to the next level, just because you have, as in that's, you've been doing it this way of dealing with this customer up until now, it doesn't mean that you should continue in the future with them or that type of customer.
Yeah. And we often have that discussion on a broad spectrum of, what got you here won't necessarily get you there, right? I love my philosophications, my philosophical statements, right? Like, I'm sure I was Socrates back in a past life. What was that?
Along with being a Viking as well, right?
Yeah, I was the Viking Socrates. But the thing is that starting business like you do, like, it's completely okay to be in that sort of, I want to do all the things for everybody, like take every opportunity you can, like it makes complete sense. And to a certain extent, I won't say you need to do that, but it's helpful, right? It gets the money in the door, but you soon realize that those people will take from you, and they'll take. And, this applies to people in your personal life. I'm sure everybody can relate to having people in your life that are just energy draining, energy sapping people, So likewise, we've got to create those healthy boundaries around what does a healthy relationship look like. Now, whether that's personal or in this state, what you're saying, client. And I think, I'd like to expand on that a little bit. Like, it's the same with employees and relationships across the business, So, yeah.
Partners too. I've seen that in many situations, right? Where your business partner or, whatever their shareholder, and they're toxic to, I guess, your mental health and your financial health as well. It's something to consider. I guess all of this, whether it's a client or an employee or a partner, business partner of some kind, if they're providing stress for you, then maybe part of the thing to consider is, well, if they're a constant or regular stressor to me, what do I need to do to change that? Do I improve the relationship, or do I sack them, or what the case might be?
Yeah. And I think maybe that's a good little thing we can give the clients, like maybe do an audit on your stresses. Like, if you were to sit there while you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure there's probably one or two things coming to everybody's mind right now of things that stress them, things that detract from their mental health. But do a brain dump, like sit down and with a bit of paper and just give yourself 10 or 15 minutes and go, okay, what does wear me down? What does bother me? And make that list, and then give us a call and we can help you with that list. But make that list first and foremost, right? And do that audit on what are the stresses in your life, because this is one thing I see all the time. People are often not aware. They're not aware of those relationships. They know they're stressed. They know that they're not in the best place mentally, but it's like when you say to them, well, what's causing it? They're like, all the things. and they can't do it. Like, so you've got to really pause and give yourself time to sit there and go, all right, what are the things stressing me out right now? What are the things that are toxic in my world? Like, ask yourself those questions.
Yeah.
And I think from there that you'll find some things out about yourself and your family and your personal relationships, your professional relationships with clients, with employees.
Yeah. And there's only so much you can fit on your plate, right? So, and if our plate is full and we can't take on much more work and we're just working harder and we, okay, yeah, I need more staff because I'm overworked and my plate is full, et cetera, et cetera. Well, honestly, if you look at that plate or what you've got on your plate in terms of work, stresses, all that sort of stuff, and look at your plate and go, all right, who's on my plate that is providing the, that if I got rid of or if I replaced, what would
substituted?
Substitute, right?
That's a really, like, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's such a good analogy though that you're talking about a plate, right? Because if we were to think about health from a place that everybody gets it, right? Like physical health, right? Diet is a thing that is commonly known is a big contributor to health. Now, if you were to look at everything that is on your plate in a day of food, right, it becomes really easy to then look at it and go, okay, I can see what's not optimal there. And I think that's a really good analogy. Like if you were to take the plate of mental food or mental things that were going on in your day, put it all on a plate. Like this is where you can do the analysis. And I guess that's what I'm talking about with the brain dump and go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe you're going home and sinking half a dozen beers. Is that the best thing to be doing to support your mental health? Probably not. But also, why are you doing that? Why are you going home and self-soothing with beer or whatever it may be? And I think when you can look at it pragmatically like that, like it's not your shit, it's just stuff on a plate. You can then start to segment out, and the two big things, is clients and employees that stress people that we talk to, it's that, but both of them are relationships, right?
Exactly. And I can't tell you how many clients who we've worked with over the years who have changed the clients, the types of clients, gotten rid of what they thought were the most important clients to them for some reason, whether they sacked them or they lost them or, they changed their terms and conditions, whatever it was. And then they, that allowed for the right clients to come on board, and it changed their business, it changed their financial situation, it changed their personal lives. Because once you get rid of toxicity, whether they're a client or whether they're an employee, you'll see the changes not only in your business but also in the other employees and the teams that you have. Sometimes I've seen this happen where you get rid of a toxic person, and when they go, the staff members, then open up to you and say, "I'm so glad you got rid of them because that person, I was going to leave, or if they weren't going, I was going to leave, in a couple of months." Or a client comes to you and said, "Oh my gosh, I was not going to continue working with you, with that guy." So,
sounds all too familiar.
Yeah,
Man, the amount of times, and the thing. Sorry, my brain's going all over the place.
yeah.
The thing that I always ask people, like, because people freak out in this. They're like, when they have that realization that they've got some toxic shit going on in their life. Now, whether that's in business or personally or whatever it may be, whether that's employees or clients, they're like, fuck, what do I do? How do I deal with this shit? And they get scared or paralyzed to take action, right? And I've been there myself, right? Because particularly with key personnel and big clients, like I've walked away from some massive clients now, but man, did I shit bricks in those moments, because it's like, where's the next job going to come from? But what I've found every single time is what the energy that becomes available on the backside of making that decision is just phenomenal. And, like you touched on it before with the team members or the clients, just their whole personas and the energy they bring to the table changes. So my question will always be, if you are in a state where you're struggling to make a decision around something that you've identified is toxic or is not supporting you from a mental health point of view, then ask yourself, how would you be without that thing in your life? that person, that client, that whatever substance, and what would become available. Because I think that opens up some massive opportunities. And I've seen it now, and I don't expect you to believe me right now. I just need you to suspend the disbelief that things are better on the other side of cutting out toxic things.
Agreed. Yeah, totally agreed.
So, Brian, we've talked a bit, and I think the two main things that we've sort of touched on is toxic clients, toxic employees. Majority of today's been about not toxic clients, suboptimal clients, let's call them. But some of them do get toxic, right? Particularly ones that are dragging the chain and taking 90 days, 120 days to pay you. I always say to people, the most powerful person in any negotiation is the one that's prepared to walk away. Ironically, the more clients I fire, the better the quality of clients that I get, and the more I get. I don't know how the universe kind of picks this up, but it just, every time I kind of make a decision to cull some shit in my life, it just levels up. But the fear before I do that is real, So I think for me, if I was going to give some tips to people, understand that the fear is real. You're scared of, losing relationships, losing the money that the client brings in, your reputation, all of those things. But the thing is, you're always going to pay. You're going to either, in those instances, you're either going to pay with the money you're not going to get, or you're going to pay with your soul being crushed by working with these clients that you don't want to work with. But I strongly encourage people to go back to understanding their niche and their avatar so they can work with more of those people. And this is the thing, when you find yourself in that startup phase, getting through to the point where you can be very specific about who you want to work with and who you say yes to, and more so who you say no to. I think Warren Buffett says it, he got to his level of success by saying no more. And I think this applies with the clients that you work with. Your goal is not to get more clients. It's to say no to more clients that you don't want to work with and get very specific clients, So I think that's kind of my advice. What would you say, what are your tips for getting people to, I guess, cull some of this stuff to improve their mental health? I mean, I know you talked about offline, we talked about sort of grading clients, and I think you can grade people across the board, whether they're the clients, whether they're employees. I say it all the time, fire everybody regular and in your mind and decide whether you rehire them. I think you can do the same thing with your clients. If you didn't have this story of having to have that client, what would you keep them? So I'll stop waffling now.
No, it's good. What I recommend to people is, first and foremost, just stop, right? Stop and take a breath and kind of assess it from a pragmatic point of view and write down your customers. For example, if we're looking at customers, let's look at our customers and then let's be logical about it and rational about it. Okay, what is it that's good about this client? What is it that's bad about this client? And then we can assess it rather than just go, oh yeah, Brian and Adam are right, I'm going to fire them tomorrow. Hey, Johnny, see you later. I'm not servicing you tomorrow, right? That could be like a pretty crazy decision. So let's just take the time and assess it and just look at it one by one and be pragmatic, like I said, about your solutions too. So one of them might be rating them like you suggested, A, B, C, D, E, for example. E class, however you rate that, right? Cash flow and income and whatever. But also, how can we upgrade an E to a D or a B to an A or a C to a B, for example? So it might be a pain at D, but hang on a second. If I put more effort into them, they could, if I change my terms and conditions, or if I were more strict with my collections, accounts receivables collections, if they did, then that'd be an A client for sure. Okay, cool. Then there's a pragmatic way of looking at a client. But I have to, freaking get rid of them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? The solution's not always firing everybody and getting new clients. Sometimes it is about, and more often than not, focusing on the things that are in your control. Are your terms and conditions, and I always say, be punitive to the process, not the person. Look at your own terms and conditions. Look at how you're showing up in that relationship, and are they just reflecting your behavior?
Exactly. So all these little things, and the same with an employee. If there's an employee that's being a real asshole and is affecting the team and all that sort of stuff, when was the last time you had a proper sit down with them and put, processes and expectations in place? First look at be pragmatic about what's wrong, what's good, what can I do to improve? Is it worth improving? If it's not, okay, well then maybe we should let go of them. So don't rush into it is basically what I'm saying, and think it through and think of what the options are to have a better business in that sense. And ultimately, by doing that, I think that you can improve your mental health and the stress that's involved with toxic or subpar clients and subpar employees.
Yep. So in a nutshell, get your perfect future client right, get your perfect future employees right, get your own systems and processes in check, make sure you're showing up. But do an audit first and foremost on your own health, mental health and well-being, and the contributing factors to that not being where you want it. And then what are the steps you need to take? How can you upgrade? So, mate, we could talk forever. We always have a good chat. Thank you for being part of today's episode. For those of you who would like to talk more about this, first and foremost, if you feel like you have some higher level mental health, I don't want to say problems, but have some higher level mental health needs, please reach out to there's so many different support networks there. I know Lifeline is huge. There's the Black Dog Institute. There is Mates in Construction. There are many different places. Are You Okay? There's all sorts of different people and support networks out there. So if your needs run deeper than these kind of surface level things that we're talking about, then please reach out to those networks. If you need some help getting linked up with those, please reach out to us at hello@tradiebusinessschool.com. And, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, and don't forget to share it with somebody else. Mental health doesn't need to be a taboo issue. It's no different to physical health. We've embraced people that need to diet. We've embraced people that need to do physical improvement on their body. This is no different. And the connection between gut and brain health is been well established now. So if you need some additional support, please reach out. We're here to help. And if you'd like to talk about how to attract perfect future clients, how to attract perfect future employees, and the process to improve that pyramid of people in and around you, then please get in contact. But Brian, once again, thanks for being part of today's show. Always valuable knowledge coming out of your wise brain. So I look forward to our next episode.
Wise. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. See you, mate.